sort of hermeneutic for womanist thought in biblical studies. So there were women who were doing, womanists who were doing theology, who were doing ethics, but not Bible. And then there were the, you know, Clarice and you and one other person who I can't remember in New Testament, and then there was Renita. I mean, literally, in Bible, seriously, when we started. And so, God, we the old ones.
Now we
the old ones.
But a generation has passed.
A generation has come.
Yeah.
And so the challenge of reading the Bible with fresh eyes, that requires you to take the church off your eyeballs, to take white men off your eyeballs, to take men in general off your eyeballs, to use that line out of The Color Purple, when she said, you got to take men off your eyeballs, that women have been trained to read the Bible like men.
Yeah, that's right.
And so we don't even ask the kind of questions that are women's questions. We find ourselves, even in our own preaching, trying to protect the men around us.
Yeah.
And we do it, and the systems. And we do it because the meta-narrative is, well, a black man gets beat up all the time by everybody, so we got to protect them while they're beating us, while they're excluding us. I'm not here to bash black men. That's not my point. I'm saying that we have a narrative that tamps down our questions because we try and, quote, not to air our dirty laundry, not to put our business in the street. You know, all the silencing words that are used in the church.
Yeah. So I just want to ask Valerie, how did you go ahead and pursue your womanist hermeneutic? And I'm asking this because in my own particular work, I was looking at Ethiopian women, but I didn't quite have, because at that time the womanist framework or methodology wasn't necessarily fleshed out.
Right.
So I could cite the work of Dr. Weems and Dr. Clarice Martin, but I had to, for the most part, use gender criticism in my study. So if you look at my book, in that opening theoretical chapter, it's framed around ethnography and gender criticism. So I think yours was more explicitly womanist.
Right.
I think it would be helpful for our colleagues to hear
and even
that.
the work that I'm trying to do now, so I do a lot in the preaching arena. This book, God is My Witness, is going to come out. Yeah, it is going to happen. Y'all better pray, saints. But so the analyses is right. Clarice gave us the tripart, right? And Jacqueline Grant, the class, gender, race, right? But you have to do the intersection of that. So when Janetta Cole preached God as a black poor woman at Sister Chapel, Jesus is a Sister is the name of the sermon. You can find it online, where she is looking at how Jesus cared about the outsider, whoever the outsider was. So for me, I'm always looking for who are the outsiders and what are they saying to the insiders? What are the people on the margins? This is how my preaching functions. What are the people on the margins got to say to us who think we are the it people? So what does it mean to have a community that thrives? To use Alice Walker's loving the whole folk. What would it mean if we didn't automatically divide people up into us and them? But that we were actually trying to build a beloved community in our preaching, in our thinking, in the ways in which we approach biblical text. So here's I'll give you a Hebrew Bible example. This is actually in the book. So somebody asked me when I was at Emory, at Candler, what would you do with Jephthah's daughter? Y'all know the story of the Judges, the book of Judges?
Yes.
You know, because one of the things about preaching the Old Testament is when I'm teaching preaching is I don't allow my students to do the Jesus punchline when they're preaching Old Testament texts. I just don't. You don't do the quantum leap. Yeah, but Jesus, you know. And I know some people come out of traditions that they think they haven't heard the gospel unless he died, got up, and whatever. That's a lie. So I'll just call it that. I know it's the tradition, But you know, it's a lie. That's all. We can talk about that later. So when you look at Jephthah's life, when some preaching that, the question in my mind, the first time I encountered that text was, and who did he think was going to meet him? He made a vow that wasn't required of him. He made a vow that he was going to sacrifice the first thing to come out the door to meet him.
Yeah.
Well, if you read the Hebrew Bible, the only thing that comes to meet warring men are dancing women.
That's it. That's it.
So which woman was he planning to sacrifice?
Didn't matter which.
When he says to her, "You've hurt my heart," this is what people who abuse people do. They blame the
Woo,
folk
Jesus.
that they are abusing.
That's right. That's right.
He says, "You've hurt my heart, daughter," and she